Thunder rumbled through the fractured sky, the kind that made you feel like the planet itself was growling in warning. Above the dead world that had once been Earth's jewel, New Alexandria, storm clouds churned with veins of emerald lightning. High above, suspended in the upper stratosphere, the halberd of Sol, a battle-worn dreadnought from the Second Martian Offensive, hovered like a god watching from on high. Its hull was scorched and cracked, bearing the scars of 5 brutal campaigns. From its bridge, Captain Mara Voss stood silent, her eyes locked to the swirling devastation below. "Report," she said, voice low, controlled, like someone who knew panic was a luxury. Lieutenant Kian Ardesh approached, his holographic visor flickering with telemetry. "We found it," he said, "buried under 300 meters of ash and fused steel. That power signature we traced from Saturn's shadow 2 weeks ago, it's here, it's active." Voss didn't reply right away. Her mind drifted for a moment, not to peace, not to home, but to the last time she saw Earth green. 2037, before the Equinox Protocol ignited the skies, before humanity fractured, before vengeance replaced diplomacy. Now, in 2045, Earth was a graveyard, and someone had decided it made the perfect hiding place. "They thought they could hide from Earth's wrath," she murmured. "But we found them. Imagine, what if a powerful alien coalition, once Earth's allies in trade, technology, and exploration, had fled into the black the moment Earth turned on itself? What if, while humanity burned, they built sanctuaries in forgotten orbital outposts, hollowed moons and derelict satellites? The Council of Halcyon, they called themselves, a species not of conquest, but of quiet subjugation. When they vanished during the collapse, we thought they had perished alongside us, but they didn't perish, they watched, waited, built, and when the time was right, they returned. Now Mara and what remains of the Vanguard fleet are all that. Stands between the exiles and the final death of Earth's legacy. Their fleet is small, 2 Vestalia-class skimmers retrofitted with magnetic pulse cannons, a deep space stealth frigate painted black as vacuum, and the halberd, with its dented hull and fading solar sails. But what they lack in numbers, they make up for in grit. Every great journey starts with a few brave explorers. Right now, Galactic War Stories is just beginning, and your support means everything. If you love epic sci-fi battles, deep space mysteries, and the untold stories of the cosmos, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us grow this universe together. As the storm thickens, Mara watches a squadron of unmanned skimmers dive through the electrical hellscape. Their hulls shimmer with kinetic shields that pulse against debris and radiation. Below them, the ruins of New Alexandria stretch for miles, skyscrapers twisted into skeletal hands, craters the size of cities, and oceans of molten slag cooled into obsidian plains. Yet amid this desolation, something moves. "Captain," Kian whispers, pointing toward a massive crater. It's subtle at first, just a shimmer, but then the dust parts like a curtain in the wind, and something colossal stirs beneath. The terrain heaves as though the ground itself breathes. Then, with a shriek like tearing steel, a fortress rises. It is not made of stone or metal alone. It pulses with life. Its surface is plated in biomechanical armor, a hide grown from fused DNA and earth alloys. The exiles have not just hidden here, they've colonized Earth's corpse. They integrated with our tech, Kian says, eyes wide with a mixture of horror and awe. They turned the ruins into breeding chambers, grown reactors, biological command spires, even atmosphere recyclers. They're rebuilding Earth in their image. A shrill warning echoes across the halberd's comms. Drones, hundreds of them, erupt. From the base, sleek as daggers, wings glistening with ion disruptors and adaptive camouflage plating. Each of them is branded with the symbol once seen on Halcyon peace envoys, a crescent split by a star. Mara doesn't flinch. "Launch boarding. Pods, target the reactor core. We're going in." The command echoes through the steel bones of the ship. Across the hangar, soldiers slam magazines into coil rifles, seal exosuits, and whisper half-remembered prayers into the void. The boarding pods, coffin-like tubes armed with mag thrusters and nano-breach drills, slide into position. Mara steps into hers, slamming the hatch shut behind her. Inside, she breathes in recycled air and closes her eyes. In the darkness, she sees flashes of what brought them here: the massacre at Callisto Dome, the ghost signal from HD 189733b, the intercepted message that simply read, "Earth lives, but not for you. Cut their power, slice through their lies, and bring their leader to me," Mara says to her squad. "I want them to see who they left behind." The pod jolts. The countdown begins. 3, 2, 1. With a thunderclap, the pods launch from the halberd's belly, like bullets from a railgun. The storm swallows them whole. Lightning coils around them like serpents. Below, the alien citadel shifts, glowing with a sickly blue light. The pods descend fast, piercing cloud, plasma, ash, and the Earth looms up to meet them like an old god begging to be remembered. They're not just boarding a base, they're crashing into the past, and what comes next will decide whether Earth remains a graveyard or becomes the battlefield for a war no one thought humanity would survive. The boarding pod struck with thunderous force, punching through layers of ash-hardened alloy and biometal plating. The sound was deafening inside the sealed capsules, a deafening crescendo of impact, tearing metal and alarms flashing crimson. The drill mechanisms at the nose of each pod ignited, spinning with a keening whine as they bored into the alien structure. For a split second, Mara felt the inertia crush her chest. Then gravity failed, the pod's restraints snapped open, and she was floating inside an artificial twilight. Her boots magnetized automatically, clamping onto the slick floor of the enemy stronghold. It was warmer than it should have been, alive even. The walls pulsed faintly, veined with a fluid that glowed the color of a dying star. Above, the ceiling stretched high like a cathedral, lined with rib-like supports, their surfaces shifting subtly as though the structure were breathing. There were no signs of traditional architecture, no bolts, no seams. It was all one organism, a living ship, a sentient fortress grown from stolen Terran tech and alien genetic mastery. The rest of her strike team emerged behind her, eyes wide beneath their visors. Lieutenant Kian scanned the chamber. These aren't just halls, they're memory corridors. They're broadcasting signals, images, sounds, emotions. We're walking through a living archive. A whisper reached Mara's ear through the comms. It wasn't from her team. It was a language not spoken aloud, but implanted in the mind, as if broadcast through consciousness itself. An echo of pain, of warning, of judgment. "You abandoned yourselves. We did not." She knew that voice. It belonged to Commander Leorin, once Earth's ambassador to the Halcyon Accord. He had vanished during the outbreak. Rebellion in 2039 presumed dead or worse, a collaborator. And now, he was the voice of the exiles. The team pushed forward. Hallways twisted in unnatural geometry, curving in ways that defied conventional architecture, sometimes overlapping, sometimes blinking out of existence mid-step. They passed through an antechamber lined with towering cocoon-like pods. Inside, floated silhouettes, humanoid in shape but wrong. Their limbs had stretched, reshaped. Neural ports extended from the base of their skulls to the walls themselves. Private Laney's approached one pod and flinched. "That's one of ours. That's Commander Hallen, from the Pharos moonbase. He went missing 2 years ago." Her voice trembled. "They're keeping them alive, feeding off them." Kian's sensors confirmed it. Neural loops, sustained organics. Some of these cocoons had been in place for years. The exiles weren't just building a new civilization. They were using human minds as fuel for their sentient systems. The fortress didn't run on software. It ran on thought, on memory, on pain. Suddenly, klaxons, organic in nature like whales screaming, echoed through the fortress. The floor rippled. From the shadows above, the first wave came. Insectoid drones, fused with armor plating and biological musculature, dropped from the ceiling like knives. Their claws vibrated with kinetic frequency blades, able to shear through steel and bone in a single slash. But the vanguard soldiers were ready. Mara raised her coil rifle, squeezing the trigger as a cascade of magnetic pulses erupted, vaporizing the lead drone in midair. The chamber turned into a slaughterhouse. "Cover left," Kian shouted, launching a zero-gravity mine that exploded mid-arc, sending a pulse shockwave that liquefied 2 of the creatures. Plasma bolts, shrapnel rounds, electro knives. It was chaos. But the team held their ground. Mara fought with a singular purpose, driving forward through the onslaught. Every step deeper into the fortress brought them closer to the truth, closer to what the exiles had become. She activated her command uplink and sent a silent ping to the halberd. Commence orbital. Scan. Search for command spire. Locate Leorin. He's here. I can feel him. The fortress began to respond. Walls shifted, reshaping to slow them down. Pressure increased, gravity warped. Something deep within the living structure had awakened. It wasn't just fighting back, it was learning, adapting. A synthetic voice echoed through their helmets, not words, but feelings, rage, betrayal, grief. You were not worthy, the voice said, finally forming syllables. You burned your world, we preserved it. And that was the crux, wasn't it? The exiles hadn't fled in fear, they had judged. When Earth tore itself apart, they didn't intervene. They collected what remained, choosing to build something new from the ruins. A hybrid civilization of flesh, machine and memory, buried in Earth's scorched remains. Suddenly, the chamber shifted again, and a door irised open ahead of them, revealing an immense shaft stretching downward, miles, maybe more. At the bottom, a single spire pulsed with white-blue light. Mara knew what it was, the control node, and somewhere within, Commander Leorin. Before they could move, the floor beneath them opened like a maw. Tentacles of steel and sinew lashed out, yanking. Private Lannis into the void. Her scream was cut short. Mara lunged, but too late. "Fall back, magnetic anchors now," she shouted, and the team braced as the ground reformed beneath them. The fortress was defending itself, not like a building, but like a wounded animal. Kian crouched beside her, panting. "That wasn't a trap, that was a reaction. It's aware of us, it's watching every step." "No," Mara whispered, eyes narrowing. "It's not just watching us." She stared down the shaft at the pulsing spire. "It's waiting." She keyed her uplink again. "New orders. Prepare a descent team. We're heading into the core." As the rest of the team caught their breath, the light around them dimmed, and Mara couldn't help but feel that this entire mission had become something else. This wasn't a strike operation, it was a reckoning. Earth's last surviving warriors versus the ones who turned their backs and chose to become something else. The next move would decide whether humanity had the right to reclaim its ashes, or whether they'd be buried by what rose from them. They dropped into the shaft one by one, swallowed by the darkness below. The descent was near silent, save for the soft hum of mag clamps controlling their velocity. It felt like falling through the throat of a sleeping giant. Walls curved around them like obsidian muscle, veined with flickering pulses of bioelectric light, data streams running through flesh instead of fiber optics. The further they fell, the warmer it became, and the thicker the air grew. The fortress was alive, and it knew intruders had pierced its heart. 60 meters and dropping, Kian's voice buzzed through comms. "No bottom yet. Scans are still being distorted. Whatever's powering this thing is not just energy, it's consciousness." Mara didn't respond. Her thoughts were already ahead of the descent, focused on the moment her boots would hit the command spire's foundation, focused on Leorin, once a friend, once a mentor, now something else entirely. The shaft opened into a massive hollow chamber. No floor, no ceiling. Just a floating platform suspended in the void, surrounded by gravity-bent architecture that warped and folded like some deranged Mobius strip. The spire stood at the center, a great tower of white-blue crystal, intertwined with living tissue. It pulsed like a beating heart, alive, aware, and older than anything built by human hands. The team landed, boots hissing as maglocks engaged. Then the light changed, dimmed, and a voice filled the space, echoing in every mind, every skull. "Vigasio came seeking revenge. But what you need is truth." He stepped from the base of the spire like a ghost emerging from a dream. Not aged, not broken. Leorin stood tall, armored in a suit grown, not forged. His skin shimmered with bioluminescent veins. His eyes glowed with the same pale light as the spire. Not artificial, evolved. "Leorin," Mara breathed. "I prefer what they call me now," he replied. his voice echoing with depth that no human throat could produce. First conductor of the memory nexus, guardian of Earth's new genesis. Mara leveled her weapon. You betrayed us. No, he said, stepping forward. I preserved what you tried to kill. He gestured to the spire behind him, and suddenly the walls around them bloomed with light. Images formed, memories harvested from the minds of the cocooned prisoners above. Earth's last days, cities engulfed in flame, orbiting stations firing on refugee ships, the Equinox Protocol in full execution, humanity consuming itself in a final bid for ideological dominance. You call it wrath, Leoren said, but we call it rot. You were given the stars, and you chose ashes. Kian moved to Mara's side. Captain, his vitals are not human. He's spliced, modified, fully integrated into the neural lattice. He is the core. Leoren smiled with a strange sorrow. You still think this is a war you can win with bullets, but this isn't a battlefield anymore. It's a chrysalis, Marseille. Chamber began to shift, walls opening like petals. High above, massive pods stirred and descended, guided by unseen tendrils. Inside each, bodies, not restrained, not dead, but changing. Human soldiers, scientists, civilians, rescued perhaps from the wars, some recent, some thought long lost. What have you done to them? Mara snapped. Given them a choice, Leoren said. We preserved minds to carry knowledge. We rebuilt, bodies to adapt. And now we offer the same to you. The Earth you knew is gone. The one we are growing, Sam, is better. A low tremor shook the chamber. On Mara's HUD, the halberd flashed a warning. A new fleet had arrived in orbit, unregistered but enormous. Ships not of halcyon design, but hybrids, human silhouettes with alien veins. Ships built from Earth's forgotten wreckage, reforged in silence. They followed your signal, Mara said, eyes narrowing. Leoren nodded. The Nexus was never just a refuge. It is the seed of the next age, and tonight we bloom. He raised his hand, and everything erupted. Tendrils lashed out. The spire pulsed. The platform shuddered as security drones, sleek and semi-organic, rushed. The team in a blur of violence. Mara fired first, her coil rifle vaporizing the closest. Kian launched a disruptor charge, short-circuiting another as its wings folded mid-flight. The team fanned out, using magnetic grapples to leap between floating shards of platform as the room fractured around them. But even as they fought, Leoren did not attack. He simply walked through the chaos, unharmed, watching, testing. You don't see it, do you? He said, voice rising above the battle. This isn't about survival. This is about what comes after humanity, about evolution. We, those who embrace the ash, we are the architects of a new Earth, one that will never burn again. Mara activated her exo-armor's gravity spike and slammed into the base of the spire. She planted the virus canister, a quantum disruptor coded by what little remained of Earth's AI network. If it activated, it would collapse the neural lattice, destroy the core, destroy him. I see you, Leoren, she said, locking eyes with him. I see a man who ran from fire and built a nest in the bones of the dead. He stepped forward, eyes soft. Would you rather let the cycle repeat? Burn again, rise again, scream again. Let me show you what I've seen. And for a moment, just a heartbeat, she hesitated. The air shifted. The spire flared, and suddenly her mind was pulled forward, thousands of years into a possible future. Earth reborn, verdant, thriving, cities grown instead of built, humanity and alien hybrids walking as one, peace, prosperity, evolution. But behind it all, always his voice. You can't stop the future. Only delay it. She ripped herself free, heart pounding. No, she said coldly, slamming her hand on the detonator, but I can remind it where it came from. The spire screamed as the virus ignited, fracturing its biolattice from the inside out. Leoren staggered, light exploding from his veins. The chamber collapsed into chaos as the structure began to self-destruct. Kian grabbed her arm, yanking her toward the exit as alarms, both mechanical and living, howled through the fortress. Mara, we need to go now. As they ran, the platform crumbled beneath them. Above, the new fleet was descending through the atmosphere, A war of old versus new, steel versus sinew, flesh versus flame, and Earth, watching silently, as her lost children chose who they would become. The world was coming undone, not just the fortress crumbling around them in violent convulsions, but everything. Everything Mara had known, Earth, its last survivors, the war, the wreckage, the fragile illusion that humanity had some control over its fate. Now all that was left was a fight against the future, an evolution they hadn't chosen. They ran plunging into the crumbling hallways, every step a desperate lunge toward escape. Behind them, the spire shattered, its white-blue light twisting, like a broken star, its tendrils snapping with violent force. The fortress groaned, the walls groaning in agony as the virus spread like wildfire, consuming its neural core. Leoran's cries echoed through the walls, faint whispers of what he had once been, torn between the man she had known and the monster he had become. "This place is collapsing faster than I thought," Kian grunted, dragging Mara forward. "We need to get to the extraction point now." The walls cracked and buckled, the living material around them twisting, contracting, as if the fortress was pulling itself apart in a final, futile effort to preserve its existence. Through the chaos, Mara's mind raced, and she glanced up at the glowing sky above them, those massive hybrid ships descending from orbit. They weren't waiting for the fortress to collapse. They were preparing for the next phase. She could hear it now, the hum beneath the rumbling of the ground. A message delivered through every structure, every system, every brain that had been connected to the Nexus. The exiles had arrived. And with them came a new order, a hybrid order, where the remnants of humanity's fractured colonies would merge with the technology and biology of their alien allies. They would claim Earth and its shattered pieces. They would rise from the ashes of the old world, but at what cost? Was this the path to salvation or to extinction? Another explosion shook the walls, sending a wave of heat and debris cascading toward them. Kian shoved Mara into a narrow passage, just barely avoiding the falling rubble. Their breath came in gasps, each step more labored than the last. "There's no time," Kian said, eyes scanning the flickering data in his helmet. "We've lost the advantage. They'll be waiting for us." Mara clenched her fists, the weight of their failure pressing down on her shoulders. The virus had worked, but too late. Leoran was gone, more than just a commander. He was a symbol of everything humanity had tried to outrun. An unyielding belief that the future could be controlled, even when the past had shown otherwise. And now humanity's last stand against extinction had become a desperate, broken race for survival. But even as they fled, Mara's heart hardened. There was something else she had to do. She had to make sure this war didn't end with Earth's death. The truth had been exposed, but not all of it. There was a plan. Something deeper behind Leoran's actions. The exiles hadn't just been waiting for humanity to fall. They had been watching, and they weren't finished. As they reached the docking bay, the remnants of their squad, scattered and battered, were waiting. But the escape shuttle's engines were already firing, ready for liftoff. There was no time for speeches, no time for ceremony, only the urgent, blood-pounding reality of their situation. Kian jumped in first, pulling Mara after him. They slammed into their seats, harnessing themselves in, the hatch sealing shut with a hiss. Mara hit the console, sending the shuttle rocketing into the sky, through the chaotic storm of falling debris and fire. The massive hybrid ships loomed above them now, sailing down through the smoke-filled atmosphere, casting shadows over the Earth they had almost abandoned. "Are we clear?" Kian asked, eyes glued to the rear display. "Not yet," Mara answered grimly. "But we will be. Hold on." The shuttle tore through the atmosphere, the heat of re-entry nearly blistering their skin as they broke free of the collapsing fortress. But above them, the hybrid ships followed, relentless, their weapons primed, their purpose clear. The exiles were not going to let them leave without a fight. The shuttle's engines screamed, pushing beyond their limits, as Mara pulled the throttles back, heading for the only thing that could save them, a safe zone in low orbit. She was betting everything on the fact that the exiles, however advanced they were, couldn't outmaneuver the speed of desperation. The final gambit. "Get ready," she muttered under her breath, as the massive hybrids broke through the atmosphere, closing in on them, their guns priming with deadly precision. They were too close now. They could hear the crackling of their weapon systems as they locked on. The countdown to their destruction was almost here. "Captain, you have to do something," Kian shouted, his voice trembling with urgency. But Mara was already 5 steps ahead. She glanced over at the tactical map, her fingers flashing over the controls. There was a way, an old trick, a maneuver she had seen once in an archive, a way to use the atmosphere itself against them. It was risky, but it was all she had. Mara activated the emergency thrusters. With a violent jolt, the shuttle lurched forward, diving into a steep, high-speed spiral toward Earth's surface. The hybrids followed, locked in pursuit. But just as they were about to catch up, Mara veered sharply upward, pulling the shuttle into a corkscrew pattern. The hybrids hesitated for just a split second. A crucial moment. That was all she needed. With a decisive punch, she slammed the emergency overload sequence into place. The shuttle's shields flared white-hot, then exploded outward in a shockwave that tore through the nearest hybrid ship like tissue paper. The rest scattered, reeling from the blast as Mara pushed the shuttle into the thin band of space between atmosphere and debris, barely escaping the ensuing chaos. For a moment, there was silence. The noise of the battlefield faded as the shuttle leveled out, gliding through the stratosphere. Then in the quiet came the grim reality of the victory. Mara's eyes closed as she leaned back in the seat, taking a moment to let the weight of what had just transpired sink in. The exiles were not defeated. They were only delayed. The hybrid fleet would regroup, and Earth's future would be rewritten in their image. And yet she couldn't shake the thought that perhaps deep inside, humanity's reckoning was still to come. She looked out of the viewport, at the stars beyond. There was no turning back, no undoing what had been done. But there was still a chance, just a small one, that Earth's wrath would find a way to rise once again. She could only hope that this time they would be ready. And as the shuttle drifted toward the nearest recovery station, Mara set her jaw. The story wasn't over. It had just begun. If you enjoyed this epic tale, don't forget to like, share, and comment your thoughts below. Which side would you have chosen? Would you have fought for Earth's second chance or embraced the exiles' vision of a new world? Let us know your thoughts, because this universe is just getting started, and we want you along for the ride.